Oh, well,
Right.
especially a giant program, because I think there was 15, or no, there's more than 15. There was, I can't remember how many of those. No, it's
There was
all
a
right.
bunch,
but
yeah,
there
but
was
yeah.
lots and lots of those cameras, and they evolved quite quickly. But they put a lot of those up there, and at a Cold War time, that would have probably caused some kind of clash. I mean, we'd already had the whole Bay of Pigs thing happen right around. It wasn't the Bay of Pigs 1960.
That was 61.
61.
Well,
So
hang on,
it was pretty
yeah.
close on the heels
Yeah.
of this potential nuclear holocaust between two countries. So they didn't want to spill the beans, and they weren't supposed to be doing this.
And also, it was a mistake. Again,
It's a mistake.
You're not about to be like, oh, yeah, sorry, we have this classified program and we kind of messed it up and
Yeah.
lost a half of something that cost more than, we've ever thought of spending anything on anything. It's
Yeah.
just, you don't do that. You don't say that.
No, you don't say that at all.
No, you want to keep quiet about it. But just maybe a little bit of a correction. I thought that what happened with that particular launch, it wasn't so much the bucket dropping wrongly, but it was that on launch, the rocket goes up, and then eventually a couple of casings pop off, and the satellite is released.
Yeah.
And I thought I had thought that one of those casings, for one reason or another, like wound up in orbit instead of going back into the atmosphere and burning up.
I've seen that as well.
And that was that.
And that
and
could
not
very
the
well be.
bucket.
But I also know there was an issue with the satellite itself, and the bucket didn't come down right as well. So
Yeah.
I don't know which it is.
Yeah,
It could have been the casing. It could have been the bucket. It could have been the Corona satellite.
Yeah, the casing I think would be a more likely candidate because
It's big.
it would have a much bigger radar signature. So I would think the
would. Yeah,
casing,
you're absolutely right.
Certainly spy satellites have come a long ways.
They're much sneakier.
Yeah,
Much sneakier now.
much better. No buckets.
Let's move to one of the next things we talked about, which is Gordon Cooper. Remember that Gordon Cooper saw the green glowing thing at loop number 15 around the globe?
Yeah.
He adamantly denied that ever happened.
Well, of course he's denying it.
He actually
The Illuminati clearly got to him.
Yes.
He actually provided transcripts, his own transcripts from his end, to prove that he didn't actually say any of that.
Yeah, he never said any of that. I know.
No, and so
and all those people in mission control, they never heard him say that either.
No, so
Yeah.
I'm guessing they never actually saw it either. We're going to then go to the 1970s when we had Duncan Lunan. I almost called him Duckin Lunan, which doesn't make any sense.
No.
Duncan Lunan, he never actually said that the transmissions that he was looking at came from the Black Knight satellite. He also seems to believe that they came from 2 points in space, one that was 60 degrees ahead and one that was 60 degrees behind the moon, the course of the moon. And he actually, later on, he acknowledged that he made some major mistakes and what he came up with was wrong, and he recounted the whole thing. He renounced the whole thing.
He retracted it?
Retracted it, yeah. He was like, nope, I was wrong.
Well, plus...
I don't know what I was smoking, but that was bad.
Well, plus, I believe Duncan Lunan wasn't actually a scientist. Wasn't he actually a science fiction writer?
That was part of what he did, I believe, yes.
Yeah.
And the last one in the story that we talked about, which was the Endeavour photos.
Yeah.
The space shuttle would always fly in a semi-equatorial orbit.
As does the ICE.
The International Space Station. The that thing.
Yes.
Yeah. If there is an object moving in a polar orbit, it would have gone by the space shuttle.
It would have been zipping.
8 to 20,000 miles per hour.
Oh, yeah.
Which would be really hard to get all of those really awesome high-resolution photos.
I know. I know it's ridiculous. I mean, and let's face it, the combined speeds of the two, because don't forget, the ISS and the shuttle,
also moving.
they're also booking. They're rocketing along, too.
They see, how many sunrises do they see in a day? Do you remember the number? It's like
I don't
20
remember.
or something
Like that. It's
some
ridiculous.
crazy.
It would be fun. I'd love to go up there.
Oh, yeah. I just wish that I could afford the trip.
Yeah.
I don't have that kind of money.
Listeners.
Unless this podcast suddenly becomes a cash cow.
I know. That'd be nice. Yeah. So, and also, it's pretty. there's all these pictures that they took of this object.
Which you can't take when you're both
Well,
moving in.
If you had a really high-speed camera, you could get maybe one shot.
Yeah.
But they took a whole bunch of shots.
They took a whole bunch of shots. Here's what's going on, though, is the mission logs and stuff. Turns out that during an EVA...
What's that?
What does EVA stand for? It's
like extra vehicular activity.
Activity,
or something
yeah.
like that.
They're outside of the space shuttle.
Yeah.
They went outside in space in a spacesuit, is the layman's term of it.
And they floated around. They
floated around. They did some stuff. Well, they accidentally knocked loose a thermal blanket, and it flew away from the space shuttle.
How does that mean?
I'm guessing it was in the cargo compartment. I don't know how it tore loose, but it did. Those things are silver on one side and black on the other, and they're basically a giant chunk of insulated blanket. So if you ever think of the insulation in your house, if you've ever seen that installed...
No, we had space blankets in our in our earthquake survival kits.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they come in like a little pack that fits in your pocket. And
something like that. Well, it's a bulkier version of that.
Okay.
But it broke loose, and it drifted away. It's dark on one side, silver on the other.
Yeah.
Or it got knocked loose.
Sorry, I'm shaking my head because I'm just thinking about how easy it is to just knock something loose into space like a human.
Yeah, I know. I know. Well, it happened to Tim Robbins.
Don't stop. Just stop.
Okay. Well, it was the blanket was crumpled and folded, and it looked odd, and it had some funny shapes as it drifted away. But we're going to have to link to this photo, but this is why I love the internet, is somebody actually took the time to take all of those photos, match up the cloud patterns, and scale them appropriately, and you can actually see this thing kind of twisting and tumbling in space. And a lot of places only show it, as we talked about earlier, one image cropped really close.
And that one image does, in fairness, look a whole...
It looks very much like it could have been a spaceship of some
totally
kind.
does.
Yeah, but
it's in exactly the right angle, and the shiny bits are exactly where you'd want it.
Yeah, I mean, but when you see this where they're all put together, not to make a
really
bad
clear.
joke, but it takes the wind out of that alien ship's sail.
no, it does.
I know that was a terrible joke. I'm sorry.
It was really awful.
Yeah,
I really cannot make a joke. The last 6 months,
it's sad.
Really,
I know, but
I gotta get a joke back to me. Okay, well let's move forward. We're gonna go to the last bit here, which is not really a theory, but it is a bit of an explanation of where maybe the name came from.
The Black Knigget.
The what?
The Black Knigget.
Night?
Didn't you ever see Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, okay. I wasn't
Don't you
making
remember
the connection.
Now go away, you silly English kniggets. You never,
Yeah,
classic
I do
movie.
remember that. Okay. Well, obviously it's British because Joe's making the Monty Python joke. Between 1958 to 1965, the Brits were launching and testing rockets, and it was under the name the Black Knight. The whole thing was initially a ballistic missile program, so they could throw nukes at...
so, like, I'm not quite dead yet? Black Knight? It's only a flesh wound? Black Knight? Okay.
They were gonna throw nukes at the Soviet Union, but of course the Soviet Union and the U.S. quickly outpaces them. They have much better rocket technology. So what they do is they just decide to salvage this program, and it was using the Blue Streak missile was the actual missile that it was using, but they were going to go ahead and use it to try to figure out how to get into space. I guess this next part is because they were trying to save money. They farmed out different bits of it to different countries, so to France and to Germany and all these guys. And they did several launches, and every one of the launches, it appears, failed.
Yeah, because
like they had bad components on every one of them from different places. It wasn't like the Germans were always screwing it up or the French were always screwing up. It was like, oh, well, they got it right, but you got it wrong this time. And so the whole thing was kind of a fiasco. It got retired in... I want to say before 1970 they quit doing it because the whole thing was just a waste of money. And
not quite dead yet.
Yes, well it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they still got something of a Europe still has a bit of a space program.
That though, that's kind of the end of what I've got here for the Black Knight. So I'm going to go on record and saying I'm not saying that there isn't something that is orbiting the Earth that we didn't put there, that is of an intelligent origin that we haven't figured out. I'm not going to say that because I can't say that. But what I'm going to say is that a lot of things that have been tacked onto this story shouldn't have been tacked on because they're not real.
But
they're not really part of the story.
That's just kind of the fun of the whole thing, though.
Well, it's the fun of the whole thing until there's 700 different things that have been glued to it.
Well, isn't that why we do this podcast?
It is indeed. And so I'm going to say, I do think that there may have been something up there that we didn't know what it was, whether it's still there or not. But it's not this giant thing that the Black Knight satellite story has grown to be, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just, probably like I was saying, naturally occurring, just a meteoroid that was captured for a while before burning up in our atmosphere, or debris left over from our space program. But that's
one of our bad spy satellites, the rocket.
Yeah. So,
any number of things.
Yeah.
But not, an alien probe or anything, probably.
No, I don't think so.
Not that I know of yet.
Kind of doubting that. Because actually, probably they would have been here by now after surveying the planet and everything, and figuring out there's lots of edible human beings down here. They would have been here.
Well, I know I've talked to you two about this, but I don't know if any of our listeners have. It always that makes me think. There's this book out there called Infected by a guy named Scott Sigler, and one of the things is that there's this probe circling the Earth that's dropping microbe spore things that are doing weird thing to people to try and get its race going again. But that's what I would think about is like if it's been there that long and it figures out we're here and hey, there's yummy humans with the squishy inside. Let's do that, but none of that has happened.
Well, you don't know that it hasn't happened.
I knew you were going to do that to
me.
I'm
just saying, you don't know that it hasn't happened.
They might have snagged some people to, actually, if you think of human beings as a delicacy, then obviously the smart thing to do is just to come down here and nab enough breeding pairs to take back